Good morning, and we're up to Daf Samach Ches, 68 by the Mishnah. So the previous Mishnah said good advice that a father should give no less than 50 zuz for his daughter's dowry, like even if he's poor, that's the minimum. And also the tzedakah takes care of a yisoma, an orphan, to give her at least 50 zuz from tzedakah. If not, if you have more, you give more, but that's advisable. Now it talks about if the father died. And now we want to marry her off from the estate. So we had a din about mizonos, which is tonight Kesuvos, that the daughters are eligible to get supported from the estate, even though they don't get Yerusha, but they get money for mizonos. And now we're talking about, besides getting from mizonos, they also are given money to get a dowry in order to get married. These young girls that they have to get married. So we take out from the estate of the father, even though they don't get Yerusha, but they're going to get married, they're going to get money to get married. And that's going to be the Mishnah. Yisoma she'siyata imo acheha mitaita v'kasvula b'mei ha'chamish mezuz yichol mishatag lo siyem yod and nasala. Orphan girl that her father died and her mother or brothers married her off, and she even agreed to whatever their dealings were, and they gave her from the money of the estate of the father 100 zuz, 50 zuz, but then and that's not really she's supposed to get more. It doesn't say in the Mishnah what she's supposed to get, but it says that when she grows up, she could come and demand whatever she was supposed to have gotten. And now the Mishnah talks about what is she supposed to have get? What is she supposed to get? If there was a daughter married in the father's lifetime and he gave her a certain amount of money, so we could assume they would have given the second daughter also the same amount of money. That's what she should have gotten. And even though the mother and the brothers, they gave her a certain, whatever, 150, whatever they gave her, but she's eligible to get whatever the first daughter had gotten. Sometimes the person's masav changes. He was poor, he became richer, or he was rich, he became poor. So you can't just evaluate according to what the first daughter had gotten. You evaluate the estate without taking the father into consideration. You could learn the Mishnah that the Bashar of the Mishnah would be that you have to take that into consideration also. Means take the father, whatever he gave, but now adjust it according to his situation of it. Proportionally to how much he gave when he had a certain amount of money. Now, if he has more or less, he give the same proportion. That would be the Bashar in the Mishnah, but the Gemara is not going to say differently. That's how I would have learned the Mishnah. So it's interesting how the beginning of the Mishnah is talking about if the father, if the girl was a ketana, she was a minor when they married her off, and they didn't give her what she's supposed to get. So when she becomes older, her mechila is not a mechila, even though she waived, so to say, it doesn't take effect because she was a ketana. So when she grows older, she can demand back whatever she's supposed to get. And now, what is she supposed to have gotten? It could have been this part, could have been first. The reader says you estimate according to what he gave to an earlier day. And the Chacham said that's not a good estimate because it should be adjusted according to what he had, how much money he has, how much money he had at the time. So the Gemara starts with a statement of Shmuel, and the Gemara is going to try to fit it in with our Mishnah, and we'll see at the end that it's Mamish taking one of the sides. Mamish Shmuel, the Parnasa, Shaman Bab. Those are the words that he said. We had it quoted before. It says in the side, Dafnun, this was quoted before. Mamish Shmuel, the Parnasa, Shaman Bab. The word Parnasa, nowadays the word Parnasa means like a person making a living, whatever the word Parnasa means. Literally, Parnasa means taking care of something. Taking care of whatever issue has to be taken care of is called Parnasa. And here it's used usually it's going to be used in our sugya as the dowry. Whatever the girl needs in order to get married, that's called Parnasa. So in Parnasa, as far as Parnasa goes, means how much are you supposed to give to the daughter from the father's estate. The father died already. And now you want to figure out how much should she get from the estate for a dowry. So Shaman Bav, you evaluate what the father would have given. Those are the words of Shmuel. You evaluate what you think the father would have given. Meisvei. Kasha from a brisa. It says in the brisa, bonus mizonos and mispanis the daughters are supported. Mazon pashat means food, and we know that it's supposed to get mizonos. That's part of the ksuba. Benon nukvan that they get mizonos. The daughters get, even though don't get Yerusha, they get mizonos from the estate, and also mispanis. Those two things, mizonos and parnasa. So parnasa l'chora, the pashat, the more going to think that it means for a dowry, and it says and they get from the estate of the father food and parnasa, which the chora means a dowry, and it says ketzad. How do you estimate that? No, you don't talk about what the father would have given. You don't say that. You go according to the estate. Means we don't take the father's personal lien what we thought he would have given. But we look at the estate, the person of this amount of money would have he should give. We go with the standard. We're going to call this a standard. Do you look at you look at it subjectively or objectively? Do you say what people should give who have so much money, or do you take the person into consideration how much he would have given? So if that's so, that's against Shmuel. Shmuel said that you do estimate the father. And here the Brisa says you don't go with the father, you go according to the standard. What does the word parnasa mean? When it says in this Brisa, parnasa, what is this word? Doesn't it mean the dowry that's supposed to go to the husband? It means that whatever she gives to the husband when she gets married, isn't that what it means? If so, it's against Shmuel. This Brisa says that you don't go with the fathers, you don't estimate the father, you give it according to a standard. That's not a kasha. We can say that the Brisa is not against Shmuel, but parnasa is asma. That means taking care of herself, not that which goes as a dowry. And the question is, that means food. On his own, so much Tanya says two things. And if you say that it means food, we said already food. His own means food. What does misparnasos mean? It must mean a dowry. My love, achas parnasos abal, vachas parnasos asma. Doesn't it mean food is parnasos asma and parnasa means the dowry? So if so, then it's against Shmuel again. Shmuel says no. We can explain that it's talking about something besides the dowry, and it's not food either. Lo, the whole Bryce is talking about herself. Not getting married. When it says Mazonos and Parnas, and this Brisa, maybe I should have highlighted it, make it somewhat highlighted. This Brisa said, and over there it says that you shaman as you don't go with the father. So that was the kasha. So we're looking at this word misparnasos. This word here misparnasos. What does that word mean? That's the interest over here. The Gemara thought that it means dowry. If so, it's against Shmuel. Shmuel said that you estimate the father. The Brisa says you don't estimate the father. You estimate the standard of so much property. How much would a man give for his daughter as dowry? Not he but in particularly.
So Atzma is not the dowry.
Is not right. That's called Parnasa Sabal. The Gemara has two. The Gemara has Parnasa Sabal and Parnasa Asma. Parnasa Sabal means what she needs to give to the husband, which means dowry. Parnasa Asma means nothing to do with getting married, what she needs for herself.
Meaning when she's older.
No, she's in the maximum 12 and a half. But as long as the father died and they have sons or getting Yerusha, the daughter needs her own part taken care of. So usually that's called mazonos. That means she gets food. And the Gemara is saying there's another thing to take care of her besides food. And the Gemara says it means clothing. The Gemara, it pushes away the right. It says this word was we would have learned simply that mazonos means food and parnasa means dowry. What she needs for food, what she needs to get married. But the Gemara wants to get away from that because then it's against Shmuel. Shmuel said that you don't estimate the father, you estimate the father, and here it says you don't estimate the father. So the Gemara says, in order to save Shmuel, we say that the Brisa means Nizonos means food, and Parnasa means clothing. So that you don't go with the father, you don't estimate the father, that you go according to a standard. But Shmuel says for a dowry, you estimate the father, so he's safe. He's not being contradicted by a Brisa.
Parnasa Sabal, you're saying, is what she gives to the boy.
Which means dowry.
The dowry.
Right. But the word Parnasa.
Her mother doesn't buy her clothes. She's
She has no money. Where's the money from? You have to have money. The mother is a widow now.
When you say that it's coming from the dead father.
So that's the question. How much do you take from the dead father's estate? What?
Where's the dead father's
That's the question. It's the Yerusha for the sons.
Oh, it's for the sons.
And that's the Yerusha only for the sons.
Not the mother.
Not the wife and not the daughters. They're taken care of. But the estate belongs to the ocean. And now we're deducting from the inheritance to give for the mazonos and for the clothing. And not a question is also to get married. We're going to see, just to give maybe just to throw in one point. We're not going to get so far today, but the Gemara is going to say tomorrow that the din of mazonos and also clothing, that's a takanas chazatz tanai ksuba. That even though they don't get Yerusha, but we do deduct from the inheritance from the state in order to give them food and clothing. But the dowry is not really the tanai ksuba. Chazal didn't make such a takana to deduct from the Yerusha. It's just because we estimate that's what the father would have wanted. It's like a new thing. It's not that we make such a takana. That's why there's going to be a difference over here. That as far as the mazonos and the clothing, we don't go with the fathers. We don't try to figure them out. We give the standard. The person has so much money. This is how much he should give for his daughter for mazonos. This is how much he should give for clothing. But the dowry is really his own business. But we're going to estimate him how much he would have given for his daughter if he would have been alive. So it's different. It's not really a Tanakh Sunnah. So far, we're safe. So far, what happened, just to zoom out, Shmuel said that in order to find out how much you give for the dowry of the daughter from the late father's estate, you estimate how much he would have given. We had a kasha from a Brisa that seemed not to say that, and we got out of it. We said the Brisa is talking about food and clothing, but it's not talking about Dowry, the dowry, you don't go with a standard, you can figure out what the father would have given. So now the Gemara goes to our Mishnah. We're going to try to figure out how does Shmuel fit with our Mishnah. Our Mishnah had a machlokes. How do you estimate? The Reader said if he had an earlier daughter that he married in his lifetime, you give the same amount. And the Chachamim said not, because sometimes he changed his status. Sometimes he was rich, he was poor, became richer, or he was rich and he became poor. So you can't use that as a gauge to know how much he would have given. So the Gemara is going to analyze that Mishnah and see if it fits with Shmuel. Now, second white line. Sometimes a person changes his financial state, and therefore, you just estimate the property and give it there. I said in the Mishnah that it could mean that you adjust how much the father gave you. You take what the father gave the first time, but you adjust according to his present financial state. But the Gemara says that can't be. My ani, my asher. What does it mean in the Mishnah about the poor and the rich? He was poor, became rich. He was rich, he became poor. It means how much money he has. The Gemara says that if that's the pashut that I said in the Mishnah, that the Chachamim say that you have to adjust it according to how much money he has presently, the Gemara says there can't be the pshat because Abuda couldn't have argued on that. Means there's a machlokes going on. Abuda and the Chachamim. Abuda says you go according to what he gave the first daughter in his lifetime, and the Chachamim say that's not a good gauge because he changes his financial status sometimes. He didn't have as much money. He has more or less.
Also, people change their mindset.
That the Gemara doesn't know yet. Good, but that the Gemara doesn't know. You're right. You're saying the maskana, but the Gemara thinks first that the Chachamim are saying that it depends on just adjusted according to how much money he has now. But that the Gemara says no one would argue on that. Abuda surely wouldn't argue just because he gave a certain amount of money. You have to adjust it how much money he has now. So because of that, the Gemara says that can't be the machlokes because it doesn't make sense. Anybody should argue on that. So what is going to be the pshat? The first wide line, very wide line now. El alav ani bedas, asher bedas. That it means what his attitude is, like what Ram was saying, that how much a person wants to give. That sometimes a person changes his attitude. Sometimes he thinks large, sometimes he thinks that not because of his money. So that's the machlokes. That the Buddha says you judge the father. Of course, when you estimate the father, of course you take into consideration how much money he has now. You're going to do it with the base of how much he married off his first daughter, and just adjust it according to how much money he has. Let's say whatever percentage you gave. So now he has more money, less money, so you give the same percentage. And that the Chachamim are arguing and saying people change. Not that the money changes, only the people change. So even though
saying ani b'das, that means that what he looks at himself as being an ani or a shir b'das.
Okay, that's good. That means right. His level of generosity or stinginess.
His mentality.
Right.
Or about the base din.
No. His mentality. Here, that's right. Right. But that means
his level of
right.
mentality.
Right. You're right.
You have no idea. He's dead.
Right. That's exactly what the Chachamim are saying. But they're saying you can't use that as a gauge what he once did because people change. It doesn't necessarily mean that's what he would have done if he would have been alive. Everyone, that's what I was trying to say before, that there is no bezdin over here. The bezdin, there's no such takana that a person has to give a dowry to his daughter, and after that they give it to you have to give a dowry. It's not like Zonos that you have to give. This is estimating what the father would have given. And Abuda says that we can estimate what the father would have given, and the Chachamim are saying we can't estimate what the father would have given, even if there's already a precedent that he gave to a different daughter. That doesn't say anything because people change.
I didn't get some of this. When he dies, correct me if I'm wrong. When he dies, the money belongs to his sons.
Right.
Who cares what he would have given
Right.
if he would be alive? He's not alive.
Very good. So that's a good kasha. And Zonos, the Chachamim made a Tanai Ksuba. Here there's no Tanai Ksuba, but they did say that's something in between, that the Chachamim made a takana to give what he would have given. But it's not that he's mechuyev to give anything. Therefore, the Gemara is being done. So how much should we give? So the only thing he would have said, Rabbi Yehuda says, estimate how much he would have given, because on the precedent of whatever he paid, whatever he gave to previous daughter, the Chachamim said that's not a good gauge.
Every live father would have given.
Let's say we'll estimate if we would.
I'm saying every live father does give.
I don't know whatever you want to say, but the Rabbi Yehuda says you have to estimate how much he would have given, and figure it out according to his personality, his personal experience. And the Chachamim say you can't figure him out. They also hold because it could change. So what do? We go with the standard. We now we look into the world and say what do most fathers give for this amount of money that he has. Now we understand.
We don't go there. What about if he's really rich or really poor?
No. So this standard means standard means according to this amount of money. People give a percentage. The Gemara is going to come out soon. They give a percentage of how much they have. It doesn't. It's not a blanket amount of money. It depends, like you say, poor person, a rich person. But everyone gives a certain percentage of their estate to their daughter to get married, and that's what the Chachamim say.
if someone would come over to a rabbi today and say, I have a lot of money, what is the ideal amount I should give to my daughter? What would the rabbi answer?
So it could be that we'll get it from the Gemara, maybe. Could be we'll get it from the Gemara. Because that's what the Chacham say. The Chacham say there's a certain standard that most people would give.
No, that's what they give, but what is, I don't know what people do. What is the correct thing to do?
That's
Well,
probably
how
what-
much a person
probably
work to
what's
try
the
to make a
problem.
savings account to try to marry off to? How much do they put aside?
Probably according to what's standard of what people are doing.
Uh-huh.
There's a problem nowadays that people give more than they have. that's the problem.
Uh-huh.
That people are not married what they got because if they don't have money, what are they going to do? So that's a problem. People give more than they have. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about people that have money, enough. That's normal, and they have enough to marry off their kids. How much should they give to marry off a daughter? It doesn't, yeah, more or less. That's what the Gemara is talking about. So, what is
So
it?
this is also the case of where she was a Kentucky, right?
I'm not sure what you mean.
Wasn't she, her father died, and so she got married off as a child. And now this is gonna come to her when she's
We're
12
not.
now.
We're not really talking about that. You're at the beginning of the mission where it talks about that the parent, the mother, and the brothers didn't give her what she's supposed to get. So that says when she grows older, so then we're gonna.
Yeah.
Then she has a right to get, and you didn't give me what I'm supposed to get. But now we're talking about what is she supposed to get.
Oh,
But like we said, the end of the Mishnah could be before. That could be real. The beginning
for
of the
any
Mishnah.
daughter.
Yeah. When she's coming to get married, the father
I see,
died.
not a
What are we
Kentucky,
supposed to do?
anybody.
Anybody who doesn't have a
Not a
father.
Kentucky, anybody,
Yeah,
any girl.
Well,
when she
well,
gets-
there, we'll see. We'll see more sugis. But so far, I'm not talking about that. They didn't give her what she's supposed to get. An orphan who's getting married. What are they supposed to give?
Okay.
I just want to tell Rabbi Yisrael, because it's
Mamish
exactly like
Yisrael,
this. Okay, this is right before World War II. I mean, it was in the middle. Okay, my father died. He left over 6 sons and 1 daughter. And then there was a big machlokes. The sons, whatever, what do we give the daughter? The daughter said, I don't want no machlokes. I'm not staying around. She took off and she left the brothers or whatever. And she ended up coming to the United States. She was the only one that lived. This is the daughter. The daughter was telling about her mother. My mother was the only one who lived because my mother said, I'm not, no machlokes, I'm not staying around for money. The 6 brothers ended up staying and never came out of Germany, whatever, they all died. The mother says, so this daughter was saying about what machlokes is about. But this was the whole story. There were 6 brothers with a daughter, they would make fights, what they were going to give to the daughter. And
So that's good. And I heard also Atzas Chachamim always, Yerusha always can cause machlokes.
Right.
Everyone should be ready when they go as far as dividing the Yerusha. Everyone should come with a mind. I'm not going to make machlokes. Money comes and goes, and brothers and sisters don't. You know, so it's that's a smart eitzah. But here we're talking about everybody's fine. We just want to know what is they supposed to get. So there's machlokes going on. The Gemara figured out, not the Pashto on the Mishnah. The Gemara figured out that according to Rabbi Yehuda, you estimate what the father, you evaluate what the father would have given, and of course you take into consideration the change of his financial status. And the Chachamim say you can't figure out what the father would have wanted. We would like to. It means again, we would like to figure out what the father wanted, but you can't. There's no way to figure out. And even if there was a precedent, you can't figure out. You can't use that as a
Because he
basis
might have changed.
because people change minds. Not that they
Really,
try.
he was not worried about that.
Right, that's what it
Let's
seems.
go with.
Yeah, and of course, he also takes into consideration if the financial status stays. He also knows that. But
in terms of
that's
what
enough of a
people-
basis.
people
But you don't have to
normally
go.
Stay with the way they are.
Right.
yeah, not only that, he has 2 daughters, one he likes and one he doesn't like. So just because he gave the first daughter that he liked.
Ah,
that-
that's not a smart thing.
That thing more doesn't bring. I hear.
I'm saying,
I hear.
that's
That thing more doesn't bring. it.
Yeah. but-
Rabbi, can I just ask,
Gemara does-
Rabbi, all these things that we take from the father, Esther, are these the Rabbanan, are they?
So we said that this is not
I mean, I've thought, what are?
So we said that it's Mazonis is going to be at the kind of one. It's tonight Kesuvos, we said, and it's
That's
not a
a
question.
key.
And here, this is what the father would have probably would have given,
And therefore, it's called,
and he's supposed to give it.
to kind of speak Chacham. I mean, that
What the father probably would have given. But according to Rabbi Yehuda, we could estimate that. According to Rabbanan, we can't estimate that. So we just give what objectively what a person should give, would usually give. That's the way to say it. What a person would usually give if he has this amount of money. So what does the Gemara want with all this? If that's the pshat of the Mishnah, so then let me just read again. First white line, that the Rabbanan say that a person changes his attitudes, not his money. He changes his attitudes. That according to Rabbanan, you don't look at the person, you look at the nechasim, the standard. You don't go according to our evaluation. Means that the Chachamim are against Shmuel. We figured out what the Chachamim in our Mishnah, what they hold, that a person changes his attitude, you can't figure him out Therefore, you go with the standard. You just look at the estate and you go with the standard. And Shmuel says you evaluate the father. So that's a contradiction from the Chachamim against Shmuel. And then one says you're right. And he also like Rabbi Yehuda. That's why Mishnah Machlokes. The Machlokes in the Mishnah was at this point. And Shmuel is possibly like Rabbi Yehuda. That's the Gemara's answer. Second wide line. With Rabbi Yehuda. The Tan Rabbi Yehuda Omer. And we see Bas Rishona. Yinasan L'Shniya. Kedach Shanasan Rishona. That the Yehuda says if he married of somebody, a daughter in his lifetime, you give the second one the same and stick in. Of course, you adjust it according to his change of financial status. That the Gemara knows. We know that. But the Rabbanan say that you don't look at all that because people change. And that Rabbi Yehuda argues and says people don't change. You don't have to be cautious people change. Just the financial status might have changed and that you adjust. And Shmuel Paskins like Rabbi Yehuda. In other words, this thing that we started off in the beginning of the Gemara, Amar Shmuel, Lefanasa, Shaman Ba'av, that's a machlokes of Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim in our Mishnah. And Shmuel's coming to Paskin like Rabbi Yehuda. So why does
he gave a point with the first order?
That means that you evaluate the father. And that's what Rabbi Yehuda says. And of course, you adjust it if his financial status changed. That goes without saying. And the Chachamim argue and say you can't evaluate anybody. And Shmuel Paskins like Rabbi Yehuda. That's the Gemara's answer. Second wide line. Who Rabbi Yehuda? The Tan Rabbi Yehuda Omer. If you married off the first daughter, you give the second one the same way. So Shmuel that's meant to Paskin like Rabbi Yehuda.
What happens if there wasn't a first daughter? You just
Yeah, you figure it out.
in the case
What
there
most
was.
people
So
do.
you figure out if you can't figure out from him personally, everybody's going to say that you go with the standard. But if you could figure out according to the first, then you do.
Look for some.
So the kasha is, why didn't he say so? If it's mamish going on the Mishnah, the machlokes Tanam, and he's passing like one of the two opinions, he should have said, Allah Rabbi Yehuda. The name Allah Rabbi Yehuda, he should have said so. Why did he just say that? The answer is, Allah Rabbi Yehuda have a mena dafka isiya the gali daite. This is what Chaim David just said now. If you would have said Allah Rabbi Yehuda, you only would see in the case where you had a precedent. He married somebody off in his lifetime. So then we could say that's how much he wanted to give, and we'll adjust it according to his financial status. But if he never married anybody, we have no way of, we don't adjust him, evaluate him. Kamash on that, no. Time of Rabbi Yehuda does that we do evaluate him according to what we would think he would give, even if it's first daughter, even if it's his first time. He didn't marry off any daughters in his lifetime. How much we think he would have given such a person with so much money and this and his personality, how much he would have given.
I think he's talking about, it usually depends how much how much his wife pushes him to
So
give.
take
Now,
that into consideration.
if she would be,
Also.
if she's
That's-
alive, or she
If you,
wouldn't.
that you also evaluate him according to what you think he would have given. Behind the cover, why does it say extreme case that he mamish married off a daughter? The reason why I said an extreme case about he married off a daughter is not to say that's the only case where you could evaluate him. You could evaluate him even if he didn't marry off anybody. It wants to tell you the other extreme, that the Rabbanan hold that even if he did marry off a daughter, also you can't assume that he's still the same person. He might have changed.
Right.
And it comes out that's the machlokes in the Mishnah, and Shmuel is passing like Rabbi Yehuda,
Hasiya is the marrying off, right?
The marrying off,
Whether
right.
he had a daughter before.
that he married off in his
Yeah.
lifetime. And it comes down-
And when he was alive, so obviously we evaluate according to that.
And you want to say you don't, that's also not enough, you can't evaluate it because people change, even
That's
though
right,
that.
maybe it's became much poorer.
No,
So what?
that even if he did, that he changed his attitude.
Like,
Before he had
like
attitude, you have to give away half of your estate for your daughter, then he had a different attitude. No, you have to give.
Or it could be the opposite also. Sometimes the
Yeah,
person
either way.
saying the first daughter
That's
gives a
only
little.
Heshivani. That's what it means, that a person's attitude changes. Only Badas, Asher Badas.
Chachamim respect that change.
Back up a little bit. There's nothing else. The whole issue here is only what the father would have given. There is nothing else. There's no chiyuv to give. It's only coming to evaluate, figure out what the father would have given. Rabbi Yehuda holds we have a way of figuring it out. We look at him. We see all of his businesses. We look at his relationships between him and his daughters. We look at him and his relationship to his wife. If his wife is gonna pressure him, whatever, he's a social pressure, whatever it is. We look at what we think that he would have given.
Yeah, it could be a
And-
whole bunch of.
Yeah,
it could
many
be
many
factors.
ingredients over there. And Rabbanan say you can't figure people out. And even if he showed himself what he does want to give at a certain time, 2 days later he might have changed his opinion. He read something in the paper, he read a Musaf paper, who knows what he did.
So we don't know like Rabbi Yehuda, if that's the case.
No.
Chachamim are different to that.
No, but what
There's
are
a
the,
machlokes of Yehuda and the Chachamim, and the Shmuel's passing like Rabbi Yehuda.
but what are the
Shmuel
Chachamim say
passes
to
like
do
Rabbi
that?
Yehuda.
But they do
So
say.
they go to standard of what the normal
Go to
person
the
does.
standard.
Don't look
And
at
is
him
this- So
personally.
is this be like it's a minhag and it's a minhag that's so.
It doesn't have to do with
Some more
minhagim.
than-
No, it doesn't have to do with minhagim. It has to do with we're trying to figure out what this guy would have given. There's no
It's not-
chiyuv to give. We're just trying to figure out what would he have done. So if you can figure out, the
It's
reason
not,
says we
but
can
the
figure
reason that
out.
that it's so important to them is because most people give. So isn't that like a minhag?
It doesn't have to do with hilchos minhagim. You're coming into hilchos
Yeah.
minhagim, not the hilchos minhagim.
Could
We're
he
trying to
have-
figure out what would he have done.
like
Now,
his will. What did he want?
What did he want to
carry
do?
out
What
in
did he
his
want
will?
to do?
now I
Rebbe
want
who
to take
agrees.
can I take your question and phrase it a little differently? Why doesn't it mechayev as a minute? If the
That's
most
not-
people,
that's-
if the whole community does that,
So
why don't I have to? do
that's
that as a
not,
minute?
that's not what Hilchos Minhagim means, but we'll leave it aside.
Okay, it's like
Hilchos
Mishloach,
Minhagim.
fine.
So here we're saying at the end, though, the Rebbe Yehuda agrees, if there isn't another daughter, do an umda.
We don't know what.
What most people do.
No, do what?
No,
Figure out what he would have done. You know the guy, he lives next door.
Oh, you know the
And
guy,
you
even
know-
if he never had a daughter. you
Right,
know
but
what-
yeah,
you
what if you
him.
know, if he would have,
I see.
if he would have had a daughter to marry off when he was
What would
alive,
he have
what do you think he would have given?
Yeah.
So
if-
10 friends get together and they figure out what he would have given.
Yeah, if he was generous to his niece when she got married, then you know, his own daughter. he
Okay,
showed me.
or
not even
whatever
that,
else
Like
you
that,
the way
you
he
figure it
lived.
out.
figure him out.
Yeah, yeah.
He's a generous guy.
And the
Keep
Rabbanan
that.
say you can't figure him out. And even if he had already a precedent, you also can't use that as a basis, as a barometer of what he is, because he might have changed. Okay, so this is what we figured out. Shmuel passes like a Yehuda.
This is the story of life.
1, 2, 3, 4,
Haika
5.
Tekani.
I'm at the Rabbi
Fifth
Yehuda, is
one,
that where we
right.
are now?
I'm
I thought we were
gonna
at Baha'i Katani.
that's in the middle. Where is that? Behind the Katan, the reason the Gemara is finished saying that Rabbi Yehuda holds you can evaluate him even if he never had any precedent. But the reason why it says a case of a precedent is to tell you the Rabbanan that even if he did marry off a daughter and he showed what he wants to give, we still don't consider that a basis that he's still holding in the same level, and he might have changed. Okay.
I don't know what that means.
That even if the reason why it says a case of that he married off a first daughter in his lifetime is in order to tell you that the Rabbanan hold, even that's not a good enough of a barometer to figure him out. But the Rabbanan holds that the Rabbanan holds that but the Rabbanan is other extreme, that even if he did not marry off a daughter in his lifetime, also you could figure him out. The whole question is, could you figure somebody out?
And he figures somebody out. Machlokus.
Amalei Rav Ali Rav Chisda. Can we publicize in your name that the halachas like Rav Yehuda in our Mishnah? Rav Chisda didn't talk yet, but for some reason, Rav got the impression Rav Chisda holds like Rav Yehuda that you do evaluate the father what he would have given,
Mhm.
like Shmuel. Amalei Rav the Kol Ki Hani Mili Ma'al Yasa Tid Mishum Mishmoi. Like he wrote something that you should say such good things in my name. This is a wonderful thing. Rav Yehuda is a wonderful psak, and yes, I pass him like that. And you can go ahead, please go ahead and you could publicize it in my name, and all such good things should be said in my name.
That one should try to figure out who the guy was.
That we should write. The best figures out what the guy was, then that's how much you
And
give
go
to
with
the daughter.
that. Don't
Don't
worry
go with the
about that he
standard.
might have changed his
Figure out-
mind or
right,
anything else.
Right. The Rava said that. Rava asked Rav Chisda, so now we have already Shmuel and also Rava and Rav Chisda. They're all passing like Rav Yehuda. And was a contradiction. Did Rava passing like Rav Yehuda that you evaluate him? But Tanya, Rabbi Yomer, Pasani Zonas Menachem, tell us is in the Chasim. Here it says that Rebbe says some kind of a standard. He said that a daughter who's being supported from the brothers means that they have the brothers who are yashining, and they have daughters that are being supported, like we know that our daughters are supported from their father's estate for food. Now it says that when she gets married, she takes 1/10 of the estate. Now we're getting some numbers. Till now we didn't have any number. Here it says that there's a standard of 1/10. 1/10 of the estate, that's how much the daughter takes to get married. So now and Rabbi says like that. That sounds like a standard. Till now you told me passes like Rabbi Yehuda and our Mishnah. Rabbi Yehuda is not Rabbi. That's Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, somebody else. Rabbi is Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, Rabbi Yehuda is Rabbi Yehuda Bar Ilah. So till now we said looks like Rabbi Yehuda, Shmuel, Rav Chisda, Rava, the pasuk that you evaluate the person subjectively. What did he do? And here Rabbi is saying that you take 1/10, and that sounds like a standard. And Rava says that's the halacha. Lo kasha. Hada midnay, hada lo midnay. If you could evaluate him, so the Rebbe says evaluate him. If you have any way of evaluating him, if you can't evaluate him, I says we don't know him. We don't know him. Somebody knew. We don't know. We don't know how to evaluate him. So then there's a standard. It means that Rebbe also agrees. Rabbi Yehuda and our Mishnah also agrees. If you can't evaluate him, you go with the standard. The Rabbanan say you always give a standard. We found out that the standard is 1/10. It seems that the standard amount that a father gives to his daughter as a dowry is 1/10 of his estate.
Shouldn't it depend on how many sons he has? If he has 10 sons, the daughter's gonna get more than the sons.
It could be that the daughter is and then whatever's left over, the Yorshim will figure will get. It seems he
The sons
doesn't
can
take
go
that
work.
into.
To some
The sons
extent,
can go work, though, then she's vulnerable. So.
it doesn't work that way anyway, because it's certainly, if it went according to what you're saying, then the daughters would get more than the sons. But in
Yeah.
general, the sons get more than the daughters, and the daughter gets what's left over. We're saying she'll take 1/10.
It
If
is
he
a
has two
problem.
sons, That makes sense. Okay, they get 45% each and she gets 10%. But what if you have 10 sons? They're gonna get
I see, but-
9% and she's gonna get 10.
The Mecca, this is the money for marrying is for now. The afterwards, that's later when he dies. That's something else.
No, he's dead already. He's dead already.
No, but I'm saying, we're saying what he would have wanted to give when he's alive.
Yeah, but now he's dead, yeah, and now,
He's-
but anyway, that's, I think, I don't see the difficulty. The Yorshim, they get the Yerusha after everything's taken care of. So the daughters have to eat, the daughters have to get married. And the Chiddush is that a tenth could be a lot. Depends on how much money he has. Here it seems to
Is
say
she under
that,
12 and a half? Is she-
we'll see more about that, we'll see
Is
more.
that all-
We'll see more, that Amud Beis, we'll see more
They're
about that.
saying, what are you taking all the money for this 12-and-a-half-year-old sister about? She's a little.
What's the
come out
difference? She
of
has to
the
get,
diapers.
she has to get married. They're not out of diapers, they're getting married by 12. They're married over here. They're getting married. They're getting married.
Right, so they don't- they say they're gonna be right.
They need money to get married. This is life, they have to get
Right,
married.
right, right.
So the Gemara says that Rabbi Yehuda agrees that if they have no way of evaluating him, that you evaluate him. But when Rabbi said about the 10th, that's not because he holds like the Chachamim that say you always go with the 10th. In the case where you can't evaluate him, so then you go with the 10th. I want to say in our Mishnah that you always go with the 10th. There's always going to be a 10th. You never evaluate him. And that, with that we argue, well, like Rabbi Yehuda, that if you could evaluate him, you do evaluate him. I could even prove that. Rebbe. Echad Mishnei Masa ben Chasim. Rebbe gave a 12. There was a case where Rebbe Paskin to give a 12, a 12th of the estate. It was a case somebody died, then you came to Rebbe, how much are you supposed to give the daughter for the dowry? And he said a 12. So that's a contradiction in Rebbe. If you hold that Rebbe held like the Chachamim, the more thought that Rebbe holds you always give a 10th. Then, and that's that was a contradiction in Rebbe. Who do you pass like Rebbe, Yehuda or the Chachamim? And the more thought Rebbe holds like the Chachamim, that you give a standard 10th. But then it's a contradiction because Rebbe himself gave a 12, less than a 10th. There's contradiction in Rebbe. Allah Shlamina, Shlamina. The Rebbe also holds that you evaluate him like Rabbi Yehuda. Now we have a whole list. We have Shmuel and Rav Chisda and Rav, and now even the Tana Rebbe also holds like Rabbi Yehuda Bar Mishnah. Everybody holds that if you could evaluate him, you evaluate him. Here they evaluated him that he wouldn't have given a standard, he would have given a 12, so you give a 12. But if you can't evaluate him because you don't know the guy, so then everybody holds that you give the standard. And here it says the standard is a 10th. A 10th of his estate. Shmamina. So with Mila,
What does Shmamina doing for us technically?
we just proved that when Rebbe said you give a 10th, it doesn't mean because you always give a 10th. It means if you don't know who he is, then you give a 10th. But if you would know who he is, then you'd hold like Rebbe Yehuda,
According to the situation.
then you would evaluate the person
According to the
personally, as
value
Rebbe
of it.
himself did. He gave a 12th one time. Why? Because he knew the person and he said he wouldn't have given more than a 12th. The Gemara continues, 3 lines up. Kufa, Amar, 2 lines up, that is. Whatever. Kufa, Amar Rebbe. Bas and Izoris Menachin, Motelis is in a chazan. That's what we just said. There's the Bryce we just quoted that if she's being supported, the Ketana that's being supported by her brothers, so now when she gets married, she takes a 10th of the estate for dowry. Maybe this is similar to Mike's question, that if he has 10, you asked about 9, right?
Yeah.
How many did he ask?
10.
10? Mamish 10?
Yeah.
The math is easier than 10.
Yeah, but the Gemara is a little different. The Gemara is saying that the sons are not going to get anything
Why?
because if each one gets a 10,
Each one gets 9% if there's 10.
10 no,
He
no.
had one daughter.
If you say that daughters get a 10 and there are 10 daughters,
Oh, 10 daughters.
oh, you said 10 sons. The Gemara wants 10 daughters. He has 10 daughters and 1 son.
Yeah.
So then the son doesn't get
Similar
anything.
question.
That's what the Gemara asks. But the Gemara's answer is not going to help you, I think.
Okay.
Let's see what the Gemara answers. But the question was that if you give each one a 10th and there are 10 daughters, so then there's nothing left for the son at all. Amulahem, no. I mean to say like this. Mishona and tell us in the chasim. They don't get a 10th of the whole estate.
The whole thing.
They get a 10th of what's
What
presently
there
now.
is.
So the first daughter comes, we take a 10th. Whatever's left. Now the second daughter, a couple of months later, wants to get married. So then she gets a 10th of whatever's left. And a 10th of whatever's left. There's always something left.
Right.
So then the son will get something. But that wouldn't help your question, right?
If there's 10 sons and she got a 10.
She got a 10. She gets 10%. And they're all gonna get much less. They'll all get 9, whatever's left. They're all gonna get 9%. That is more than
$1 the first
That-
one.
that is involved in the Gemara.
Where's the
Second girl gets
emphasis?
90.
So really it continues till the end of the page.
90.
But I stopped here. I stopped here first. The first 10 one takes the
It
10.
doesn't go to Kol Chada B'Chada.
No, because
That's a
like
new
the
sentence.
first one is gonna
That's
get
for sure, no sentence. But even these last 3 words, even these last 3 words on the page also are like a new point. But it does say that the first one gets a 10th, the second one gets a 10th of what's left, the third one gets a 10th of what's left of that.
Right.
That answers the question already.
Because there's always gonna be something left.
Yeah.
Right,
It's a
right,
tenth of something,
Right.
always leave something.
right. So the son is okay, he'll get
The
something.
Hoser, the Halakha.
Now, at the last, I stopped over there just to get the point, that's to answer the question, but the Rebbe continued talking, and he said, "V'chol zros, v'chol kos b'shava." They make this cheshbon of the, how many you have, 10 daughters over here? They make the cheshbon, the first one, a tenth, and then a tenth of whatever's left, and then a tenth of whatever's left. You take all that money, that's set aside for the girls, and then you redivide it equally for all the girls.
Oh,
And then read the.
so the oldest girl has to give off.
I
all of them- all of
thought
them-
that meant for the boys.
No, they get whatever's left. The one son over here is only going to get whatever left, but the chosers for cholkos b'shava, cholkos is feminine. They redivide, each one gets equally. That's what
Very
Rebbe
nice.
said, and that doesn't make sense. Right away, the Gemara, why should they do that? The Gemara, the number base now asks
You
the
mean because
question.
one,
It's more fair like
because
that.
the one that's getting married now, why doesn't she get
Why does she get it?
10%?
Why should she? Yeah, and next
not
one, never
fair
she
to
gets
her.
married. Why should they redivide it equally? The Gemara is kasha number base. Each one should get their own tenth. Chaisis explains because that's the das of the father. When a person marries off his daughter, he has 10 daughters. What does he do? And maybe you could talk about human nature here also. What do people do? Do they make the whole cheshbon of how many daughters he has to marry off and then give to the first daughter? Or right now, it's not just to give a tenth, and the next one, when it comes, I'll give a tenth whatever I have. And the Gemara thinks that's what people do. They don't think of the future so much. They go according to what they have now. So therefore, the Gemara is asking that you want to know what the father would have done. That's what he would have done. He would have given each one a point. So if they're getting married at different times, so then how come you redividing it equally? So the Gemara answers, you're right. We didn't mean to say that. How can come out? That we meant to say, im bo kulam li'nasei ta'achas chokos b'shava. If they all came together, they're all getting married together at the same time, theoretically. That's what it means. Then you redivide it. But then that if they're coming at different times, so then each time you only give a tenth of whatever's left.
What's the nafshe shikla?
That's a kasha. Each one is taking what, let's each one take what's coming to her. It's a kasha. Each one should take what's coming to her. Why do you redivide it equally? The first one should get a tenth. The second one should get a tenth of whatever's left. The third should get a, yeah. How come you divide it? You redivide it.
90%.
How come you redivide it equally? Gemara says you don't. You're right. It only means to say in a case where 2 of them are coming or 10 of them are coming together, so then you do this whole cheshbon and redivide it equally because they're coming to marry simultaneously. But if they're coming at different
Well, then
times,
why wouldn't it? Oh, because
that's the das of the father. When the father, if the father
the
would
das of
be,
the father wouldn't be that then his whole relationship should go to only the daughters.
we're not talking about that. That's finished. The son is going to get whatever's left after this whole cheshbon. It means I think it's good what I did.
Well, I don't
That-
quite understand.
to answer the
why
kasha
this
with the
is-
son-
why this is fair.
To answer the kasha of the son, the yellow is enough. The bottom line. To answer the kasha that the son's not going to get anything, the yellow part, that answers the kasha. That the son is left with something because you did the 10 daughters, you did. Minus 10%,
They're all
minus
getting
10%.
married at the same time.
Doesn't make a difference. This cheshbon is still going to be, you do a tenth and then a tenth of what was left.
Of the 90,
Tenth, right, and then the son gets something and he goes and he's fine.
Okay.
Now the daughters are all sitting over here and they're saying we're all getting married tomorrow. Whatever the case is.
So we don't take the.
So now what do you do? You don't- then you don't
10,
give- they
9,
don't
7,
give-
6. You
right.
add them
Then you
all
take
up
all that,
together
and then you
divide it
redivide
into-
it. But then the Gemara said that's only in the case we're all getting married
Right.
together.
What do you mean
But
you redivide? I'm not getting the.
we'll do some math. You had $100. Talk very cheap, you know. You have $100,
Yeah.
and now what do you
Give
do?
it 1,000
10.
of it.
No, you give 10 to the first
You
one.
want to do $1,000? Okay,
Yeah,
we'll
let's do it.
talk big money. So you have $1,000, and you give a tenth to the
Give
first
100
daughter.
to the one.
100. Now how much is left?
900.
900. Now you
Yeah,
take
90.
90. So you have how much in the bride's
Yeah,
account?
800,
How much is count like that?
810.
You have 100.
Yeah,
No, how much? No, how much?
How much
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the collar
In the
fund?
collar fund, you have
100 plus
190.
190.
190.
Doggone.
Let's talk about that. Let's stop there. Already. You have 2 daughters, so 190. Now, do you give the first daughter 100, second daughter 90, or do you split it in half? 190 divided by half, and you give each one.
95.
So what do you do? So it says here that you redivide it equally. You can go on again. I just did 2 daughters. You can do 10 daughters. So it says here you redivide it equally. The Gemara says, why should it be divided equally? If one's coming to get married now, you give her 10%, give her 100, and the next year, the next one comes to get married, you give her the 90. Why are you redividing it equally? So the Gemara says, you're right. We don't. If they're coming to get married together, both of them want to get married now, then you redivide it equally. But if not, then you give each one.
Yeah, I mean, you can really say that if after marrying one daughter, 3 daughters later, he just became a richer guy. He got did
He's
well.
dead. He's dead. He's dead.
No, but even he
His
has
earning
money.
power is.
He had
He's
a
not-
lot of money on the bourse. And
He's not making any money. He's not making-
And
he's not
he had
making-
property. He had a house worth
He's not-
20% more. He's got
He's
a,
not-
Stock market went
no,
down.
but really, he does leave a piece of property. Doesn't it go?
Everybody left belongs to his son.
Right now, they need to get married, and whatever he has now is what they
That doesn't-
evaluate.
So you're saying that's not gonna work, okay.
And also that's gonna go to the son, they're gonna divide what he has now. If it goes up, then your son got whatever he got after it goes up, it's nothing to do with it.
Beside Lely Ramatana, Dam Ramatana, in bold, Kulam Kachas, Notos Isser Echad. This is a support to Ramatana. What we just said, that depends if they're getting married together or not. If you be divided equally, Ramatana seemed to say so. Now Ramatana didn't say so exactly, but we have to figure it out. He said the following: in bold, Kulam Kachas, if they all come to get married together, Notos Isser Echad, they take 1/10. The way that it says it, it's very strange. It means all of them only get 1/10. That doesn't make sense. They're all coming to get married, and they're all going to get only 1/10. That doesn't make sense. Isser echad sakadaitach doesn't mean that. It means elanotos isser ke'echad. They all simultaneously take a 10th, which means you do what we said. You take a 10th, and then a 10th of whatever's left, 10th of whatever's left, and then you redivide it equally. So after we figured out that's what Ramatana meant, that's also what Rebbe meant to say when he said these last words, but that's what he meant. If they're coming to get married simultaneously, so then we redivide it equally. Okay, but as far as the first question, that the son's not going to get anything, so we said you don't get a 10th of the original, you get a 10th of whatever's left. So that's the end of the sugya. More or less, that's the end of the sugya, which is the second half of the Mishnah. How much are the daughters supposed to get? And we had a machlokas of Yudah and the Chachamim. Just to zoom out and sum it up, there's a machlokas. How much money do you give to the daughters to get married? Rabbi Yudah said that you evaluate. If you know the person, you evaluate how much you would have given. Of course, you take into consideration, and if you have a precedent, then surely you see how much you gave, and if you have to readjust it according to his change in financial state, of course you do that. But you evaluate him personally, and the Chachamim say you can't evaluate anybody because even if he had a precedent before, also he might have changed his attitudes. So you have to give a standard, and we found out that the standard is a 10th. And Rabbi also agrees if there's no way to evaluate him, so you give a 10th. That's the standard that a person gives to his daughter from his estate. More or less, that's what it came out. Shmuel passes like that. Rav Chisda, Rava, Rebbe, everyone passes like that. And if you can't, you have no way to evaluate him. So then you give a 10th. And the Gemara talked about the 10th. That the 10th means a 10th, and then a 10th of a 10th. And in the case where they get married simultaneously, you'll take all those 10ths and be divided equally. Now the rest of the sugya now is going to continue to the ratio of the Mishnah. The ratio of the Mishnah spoke about this Yisoma, that she was a Ketana. She got married, her mother and brother married her off, and they gave her less than coming to her. So when she becomes a Gedola, she could vote and say, you didn't give me what you're supposed to give me. You're supposed to give me whatever it is, a 10th or whatever you evaluated the father. So that's what the Mishnah said. That's the beginning of the Mishnah. We would have put it second. We would have first put what's the standard, and then if they didn't give her the standard, she has a right to demand it when she becomes an adult. And even though she was quiet, Midaita says the word, she didn't Midaita, she agreed to it. So her mechila is nothing. She's a Ketana. So then even though she's mechil, doesn't mean anything. And therefore she could say that you didn't give me what I was supposed to give. And now the Gemara talks about that. Tana Rabbana. Tana Rabbana. Bonos. Bein bag rachel onisu bein nisu rachel bagu. Ibdu mazonos saying. First about mazonos. So this we had already before. We had a Mishnah. Till when did the daughters get supported from the estate? They don't get Yerusha. They get support, food, clothing. Till when? So it says Bogeres or Nisuin, whichever one comes first. If she becomes the Bogeres, which means 12 and a half, she stops getting fed. Or she gets married even before that. She also stops getting fed. The Mazonos is only until she's a Bogeres or until she becomes married. She gets married. Then if she gets married, her husband takes care of her. And even if she doesn't, if she's a Bogeres already, it doesn't go on indefinitely. That she's going to get support until she gets married. Marriage is usually 12 years old, 12 and a half. Everybody was married. If she that's what it seems to say, that even if she got married and she didn't get her share, whatever is going to be 10%, whatever it is, she doesn't lose it. She doesn't lose it.
You do is
I
to
thought
lose
it's
it.
part of the marriage thing, that when she gets married, the husband says, what's coming with you? That's the dowry.
Okay, so but he wasn't waiting for the money, and he got married, and then 5 months later they come back and say, she's eligible. My wife, we got married. They didn't give us. So here it says they don't lose it, even though she got married. Either she became a Bulgaris, or she got married, without getting the money, she doesn't lose it. She still could claim it. Divrei Rebbe. But Rav Shimon ben Elazar argues. Rav Shimon ben Elazar Omer, after you put on Panasas, and they do lose it. She loses it. It seems in the Pashup Pshat, either if she becomes 12 and a half, or she gets married,
That's it.
then she loses it. She didn't claim it. She has to claim it right away. If she didn't claim it, she
She
doesn't
has to
get it.
claim it before she gets married. She has to
Yeah.
claim it before she's 12.
And she can't claim it if she's not getting married. She can't claim it.
Right.
If she becomes a Bulgarian and she has no chassan yet, she's in trouble.
Uh-huh.
So what did they used to do? Kids that I know, since they used to temporarily get married just to get out the money.
Right.
So across land bound, they would hire husbands. How do you hire a husband?
Right.
A husband for rent. What do you do? That means that they were they wanted to get their money, so they got married, and maybe they even made up to get divorced after that. They just wanted to be able to maybe she get kind of
Maybe at
commission.
that point, their minds are clear enough to be able to go through that whole emotional thing. For money, they don't even understand money.
So it could be I'm going to do everything. They'll give her a ring, and then I'll give her a get, and everything's fine. She'll get his commission. That she's able to extract the money that's coming to her, because if she's going to get married without, if she's going to become a Bulgaria, she's going to lose it. So
I understand.
What?
The kids have part of the thing, or that's.
yes, it's part of their Rav Shimon ben Elazar. What did they do? What did the girls do that they don't want to lose their dowry that's coming from the state? So close land bottom, they rent husbands.
So close.
How do you hire a husband? I guess that's what they do. They
Maybe he
give them,
demands
they
that
give
they
them a
money.
commission.
Money and
They
they
give
tell
money,
them,
I'm
"Yeah,
not
we'll
married,
get
I'll give you the
divorced
get.
later."
Then you got-
Yeah, but then he's gonna be with her. She's only gonna get she's gonna remarry.
It could be they made up this thing that they're only getting married temporarily just in order to be able to
Sounds
get the
pretty
consumer.
crooked to
And
me,
he,
honestly.
what's crooked?
You know, so that's what we're talking about, an honest.
What, I didn't say why it's crooked. You didn't say why it's crooked.
What?
Why are we taking crooked? Because we're moving, we are usurping money from the father's
Because she has the right to get a
for
dowry.
marriage, that's not for real.
No, of course she's gonna save it for the marriage that she's gonna get married, but she doesn't have a husband yet. She's not getting a husband. She's looking, she's trying. She didn't get. So she tells one of the dates that came, listen, lo matim, it's not compatible, but let's go through it. And I'll give you a percent. I'll give you a cut.
I would say give it a good try that she's really trying to, give it a try, that
Give
could
you a
work.
cut of what?
Let her get
Of
in her
I'm the
mind that
dowry.
she's
I'm
doing
getting
it. that it's
$10,000.
Even if it's a 10% chance.
I have to get married. If I don't get married,
But
I'm
she's not doing it.
my 12 and a half birthday is gonna be in a couple of days. If I don't get married, I'm gonna lose out the whole thing. So let's get married officially, and I'll give you $1,000, and I'll see.
I don't know. Maybe she should.
Okay, that's enough. Rebbe and Rav Shimon ben Elazar.
So she should sleep with somebody and then it's not gonna work out and then now she's not a
not a virgin.
That's great. So she ruins the whole life.
No, it
That's what
doesn't
I'm
have
saying.
to sleep with them.
Oh, you're saying it doesn't have.
No, that's what I'm saying. In this case, it makes more sense than what you're talking.
I'm Rav Nachman. I'm Ali Huna. Huna told me. Huna's Rav Huna. Rav Nachman said, Huna told me. Hilchos like Rebbe. Pass like Rebbe, that she does not lose it. Again, Rebbe says she does not lose it. Rav Shimon ben Elazar says she does lose it. And here it says that he passed like Rebbe, that she does not lose it.
Okay, so now we have no problem. You see that now all around. right?
Eis ve'Rav Rav Nachman. Now we have a kasha from our Mishnah. This is our Mishnah. That's the kasha from our Mishnah. Our Mishnah said that the Ketana does not lose it. What did our Mishnah say? That the Soma, that the mother and the brother married her off,
She's still in the age.
she's a minor. But when she becomes 12 years old, then she can demand it. So it sounds like only a Ketana. Here's the Mishnah. The Soma she'siyata imo acheha midaita v'kas lo b'meya b'chamishin zuz shechol v'ishet mishetagdil chotzim yada ma'shavor linas. And all that's the Mishnah on Amar Aleph. It says that an orphan that got married, her mother and brothers married her off willingly, and she agreed to it. And they gave her whatever small money, 150. And when she gets up adulthood, when she becomes 12 years old, she could extract and say, you're supposed to give me 10%. So time the Ketana, the Mishnah only talks about a Ketana, a Gedola Vitra. But if she would be a Gedola, I mean she was Mochel. So why does the Mishnah talk about a Ketana? According to you, even if she's a Bulgaria, it's not only a Naira, even 12 and a half.
Right.
You Rebbe, so the Mishnah is against Rebbe. That's the one's asking. The Mishnah sounds like she is Mochel. Lo kasha, that she has to protest. It means she has to say so. It means here we didn't know this, but here when Rebbe says that she doesn't lose it, it's only if she says that I'm not mochel. Here means it comes out of machlokes. There's machlokes inherently, and then there's a question about mechila. Rav Shimon ben Elazar says that even if she's mochel, even if she protests, the word mochel, machloy means mochel. She protests. She says, I want the money. I'm not mochel. I'm not waiving anything. So Rav Shimon ben Elazar says it doesn't help because the takana is only till she's a Bulgaris, till she's 12 and a half, or until she gets married. But Rebbe holds that the takana is even after she gets a Bulgaris, she's a 12 and a half or that she got married. But if she doesn't say anything, that's another way of being mochel. She's waiving her rights. So that in order to answer the contradiction, that's the point. In the Mishnah that it says that if she's a Ketana was mochel, the mechila is nothing. A Ketana is not mochel. Even if she's mochel, doesn't mean anything. She has no das. But a Nara, if she's already 12 years old, she has das. And if she's mochel, it's a mechila. But here we're talking about that she was protesting. She's demanding it. She says, I'm not mochel. Don't think just because I'm getting married and I'm not collecting the money, that means that I'm mochel or not mochel. Then she has a right to it. If Shimon says, even if she demanded it, also she loses it. And therefore she has to hire her husband. I'll prove to you that Rebbe means to say that she has to demand it. If she doesn't demand it, then she's mochel. The Tanya, I hope I'm being clear, the word mochel and the word mochel. Mochel means to waive, and mochel means to protest, opposite. There's a mochel, there's a mochel.
Yeah.
Mochel means you demand it. I'm saying I'm not being mochel. So I'll prove to you that that's what Rebbe means. The Tanya, Rebbe Yomer, Basan is honest menachem and tell us this in the chassid. That was a quotation we had before number Aleph, that a daughter was being supported by the brothers because she's a ketana. She's only supported or a naira, but as long as she's being supported, then she gets the 10th, then she gets the dowry. The zone is in, and the zone is low. Here it would be mashma only as long as she's being supported. If she's not being supported, she's not going to get. It means a Bulgaris surely wouldn't get. That's it's a contradiction in Rebbe. Rebbe over here said that even if she's in the yellow over here, Rebbe said that she doesn't lose it even if she's a Bulgaris, even if she's 12 and a half. And over there it says only as long as she's being supported. But if she's if she's a Bulgaris, she's not being supported anymore. So is there going to be a contradiction in Rebbe? It must be. There's a difference if she demanded it or not. That if she doesn't say anything when she becomes a Nara, so then she's waiving it. Then she's waiving her rights. But if she says something, she didn't waive it, and she has rights to it even after. It means it comes out there's two issues. One issue is if she loses it, not because of her mechila. According to Rav Shimon Gamliel, once she becomes a Bulgaris or she gets married, she loses it, not because she's being mochel. She's not being mochel, but she loses it. But according to Rebbe, she doesn't lose it. But if she doesn't say anything, then she's being mochel. Shmamina. Amle vina le Rava. Amalan Rava adaba Rava mishimcha bagra ena tzricha limchos. Nisay ena tzricha limchos. Bagra v'nisay tzricha limchos. Ravina told Rava that the Rava told us in your name, Rava, that when does she have to be moche? When does she have to protest and say, I'm not mochel, I want it? Only if both things happen, that she's also Bulgaris and also getting married. Bagra alone, she doesn't have to protest, it's not called a mechila. Nisais alone doesn't have to protest, it's not called a mechila. Only if it's both, she's already 12 and a half, and she's getting married, then she has to say something that she's not mochel, but if she doesn't say anything, then leaves it. And then why is the kasha? Because it doesn't sound like that. Is that true that Rava said she only has to protest if both things happen? What was the question from our Mishnah? Our Mishnah was the case of Yisoma. Where is that over here? This Mishnah over here, Yisoma. Yisoma she'esiyat ima, which means the diak was Ketana, time of the Ketana of the Dola of Vitra. Once she becomes, if she would have been 12 years old, that's enough. And the Gemara said the case is that if she didn't say anything, she didn't protest, she's mochel. Over there, it doesn't say anything about also being a Bulgaris. It says that if she gets married, a Ketana that gets married, that's nothing. A mechila is nothing. But a Nara that gets married has to protest, and not that you have to have also Bulgaris, and also the whole deal was that a Ketana, her mechila is nothing. But if she's 12 years old already, she's an adult. So 12 years old, if she's mochel, it's a mechila. And it says that she has to protest. You're saying she doesn't have to protest. Just because she got married doesn't mean she has to protest. Only if she has both things against her, that she's also a Bulgaris, also getting married. So that seems to contradict. So the Gemara says a very beautiful answer. Lo kasha. Really, they can stop supporting her. They can stop giving her food when she becomes 12 and a half. When she becomes a Bulgaris, they can stop giving her food. Also, if she gets married, they can stop giving her mazonos. If they're going beyond the letter of the law and they're giving her mazonos even after she's a Bulgaris, then it's not such a kasha why she didn't protest and say, even though I'm a Bulgaris now, it's my 12 and a half birthday, I'm not mevater on the dowry that's coming to me. If they're supporting her, then she feels very uncomfortable to say that because they're going out of their way. They're giving her support, even though she's not. So she's not going to say anything, and it doesn't show that she's really mochel. She didn't say anything because she's uncomfortable. Also, if she's getting married, also they can stop supporting her. But if they are supporting her, and you don't have to. So also they're going out of the way. So it's not a kasha why she didn't say anything, because she feels uncomfortable. They're being so nice. So therefore, that's the case in which she doesn't have to protest in order to show that she's not mochel. But if both things are happening, she's also Bulgaris already, and also she's getting married, even though, and they're supporting her anyway, which is really, really nice. There are two reasons not to support her. But then if she doesn't say anything, then she's mochel. And everything is good now. So it comes out that there's machlok. We finished the sugi. That's as far as we go today, even though we didn't get to the bottom of the page. We'll be finished till till there, right? Till there, till the commits in the midnight. That's the end of the sugi today. So what came out that there's machlokis if this thing about getting dowry, does she lose it inherently when she becomes a Bulgaris or marries? That's of Shimon and Lazar. We don't pass like Shimon and Lazar. We pass like Rebbe that she doesn't lose it, but we still have to judge if she was mochel. A ketana is not mochel. And the Gemara comes out that if she's being supported, even though the brothers don't have to, then even if she doesn't protest, it's also not considered a mechila. If she just became 12 and a half or she got married, it's only going to be considered a mechila if she didn't say anything when she's both married and a Bulgaris, then she has to say something.
How does it happen at the same time?
No, it means that she got married after she's 12 and a half. She was already 13.
Once she turns 12 and a half.
No, that's what we're saying, that they could have stopped support. The fact that she didn't, if she's not being supported, if they say, our dear sister, today is your 12th and a half birthday, no more support, go figure it out.
Right.
So then she has to say, but you owe me dowry. She has to say something. If she doesn't, I'm sorry. Then if she's not being supported, yes, then she has to say something. Then she has to say something, right? Then she has to say, if she doesn't say anything, then she's mochel. If she's not being supported, that means the brothers are going with the letter of the law, that you're 12 and a half, no more support.
Right.
So then she has to
Is she
say.
married? No, she's not married. She's married, that's 12 and a half.
If she's, no, if she
Before
gets
she-
married before 12 and a half, and the brothers tell her, now that you're getting married, my
Right,
dear
so-
sister, no more support, your
Right, your
husband,
your
then she has to
husband
say,
takes
well, you
care
have to give me the dowry.
Yeah.
Or if she becomes 12 and a half without getting married, and they're not supporting her anymore, she has to say, you have to give me the dowry. If she doesn't say any of these two cases, then she's mochel. But if they're supporting her beyond the letter of the law, so then it's not a kasha why she didn't say anything. She doesn't want to say, give me dowry. That we're being so nice to her, giving you mazonos. But it doesn't mean that she's mochel. But if she's both past 12 and a half and she's getting married, then before she gets married, she has to say, but you have to give me the dowry. And even though we're saying, but we're giving you mazonos, but she says, but you owe me the dowry also. If she doesn't say anything, then she's mochel.
Just before she turns 12 and a half. This is,
No,
or even after,
They're giving her money.
Or the other way, if she got married before 12 and a half, so she doesn't, and she's being supported out of the goodness of their heart. It's not a kasha if she doesn't say anything, or when it comes to 12 and a half birthday, and she's also married, so then she has to tell the brothers, you owe me, I'm not being mochel, even though I'm not being quiet. You do owe me the dowry, and I'm already 12 and a half, and I'm married, you owe me the dowry.
and that's.
She wasn't mochel, she wasn't mochel.
You got it right. Jim.
She has it right, yeah, we're going according to Rebbe. According to Rebbe Shimon Gamliel, she loses it. But according, I didn't, she doesn't have a right to it. But according to Rebbe, pass like Rebbe, that she has a right to it. Let's make sure she's not mochel. And we're trying to evaluate when is she mochel, but when is her silence considered a mechila? When does a silence not show any mechila? That's your call, everybody. Thank you. We'll be continuing with, what is today? Kesuvos. That's your call. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.